Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Loki Oren, and we're not in Darkest Dungeon 2, but we're talking about Darkest Dungeon 2. Uh, Probably a lot of folks have already heard that Red Hook recently released a community update, including a picture of what is no doubt a new cultist enemy that they talk about a little bit more later. But yikes, look at this. Look at this thing. This looks like it's going to be bad. But yeah, so I just wanted to briefly talk through the community update. This will be a kind of a hopefully a shorter video because it's mostly good news, but there's it's a little light on like deep substance. It's more of just the general path forward, which I'm fine with. I think that's it would be nice if more developers communicated with the community like this and kind of told us what they were thinking. But anyway, so initial bit, they're very Red Hook's very excited about the release of the Shroud of the Deep, and they're very happy with the way it has come out. And I agree, it was a very good expansion. The Leviathan boss, the Seething Sigh, just everything. There's been changes, there's been hot fixes, there's been nerfs and buffs going back and forth, still getting everything dialed in just right. But overall, I definitely characterize it as a success. However, the first thing to highlight here going forward, you can expect more frequent, smaller scoped milestone releases. Consequently, the roadmap that a previous video talked about is no longer reflective of the production plan. Now, on the one hand, they're changing the plan, they're changing the roadmap. Oh no, doom and gloom. And look, that's I'm being silly about it. This is, I think, actually a very intelligent, brave move by Red Hook, saying we listen to the community. The community doesn't want to wait 4 or 5 months between updates. They want regular content updates, and as such, the plan wasn't aligned with how the community wanted this to come out, and they're adjusting the plan. Makes total sense. So we should be starting to see, kind of more incremental changes, which should hopefully mean that they can sort of balance as they go rather than having to do these big, heavy chunks one at a time. They also talk about they're listening to Discord and Reddit. They have three main areas of the game that require work and dedicated focus, and they are focusing on those areas. The first one, progression. They highlight something that a lot of folks have talked about, that there's a kind of a lack of meaningful choice. Like once you get to hope level 50, there's nothing to do with it, and even getting there, it's a very linear track. I am not one of the community that's talked about how we want a Hamlet. I think there's a meme on the Discord for Darkest Dungeon 2 about someone who came in and basically said this game sucks and the best thing they could do is scrap it and use it as a mini game on the way to a Darkest Dungeon 1 style Hamlet, which I think is just a hilarious comment to make. But it does capture that idea that the Hamlet was a foundational part of Darkest Dungeon 1, and there's not really anything that's capturing that in Darkest Dungeon 2. So I'm interested in seeing where they go with this, but we don't really know much more beyond they're looking to build a stronger, more compelling link between investigations and giving us a hub to increase capabilities and unlock new items. Again, kind of leaning into that rogue light style of play where we are progressing, we are getting stronger, but still tying everything together and keeping things interesting. They talk a bit about relationships. They want to bring back some of the surprise and tension, which I think is kind of alluding to in Darkest Dungeon 1, where the affliction, like when you maxed out your stress to 100, you had a chance at a virtue or an affliction. So it could be good, could be bad. And the good was very good and the bad was pretty bad. In Darkest Dungeon 2, even if you're playing on Infernal, though, since I don't really play on Infernal, in the base, kind of the baseline experience, you have a pretty good predictor of where relationships are going, so you know what you're going to get, and there's very little mystery. But also, you have, it's such a it's something you mess around with early to get to the point where it becomes self-sustaining, and then you sort of stop worrying about it. So they want to add some tension and surprise, so we don't necessarily know what we're going to get, or we can't be guaranteed of a a positive or negative outcome. More meaningful choices, more benefits and drawbacks, to make it more active and tactical. Less of the just act outs and random annoyances versus like actual decisions or actual implications, I assume. And then clean up some of the combat clutter and interruptions, which I definitely agree with. It's very irritating when you have like 3 act outs trigger all in the space of like 5 seconds. It's just like, okay, I didn't get to play the game for 6 seconds here. Like, that's kind of obnoxious. So they're looking to revise and improve on this. But I think given what they're talking about here, and let me double check. Yeah, that it's being pushed out. So the relationships is kind of getting pushed out a little bit because they have to keep working on it and they need to put a lot more into that. Next up, a big area they wanted to talk about is the driving. Again, this is not something, kind of like the Hamlet request. I don't really mind driving the stagecoach. I think it's kind of, it's just sort of, a little pause, a little breather, a little chance to talk or ask questions or think about stuff in between encounters and decisions. But I do definitely kind of understand the feel of, there's no blockages, there's no ambushes, there are no like little side decisions. It's just drive to the next place, and most of the time I'm double tapping W and letting the cart drive itself. So adding in some layers of decision making there, obviously with an eye to making the game more engaging and making the stagecoach more than a reflex oriented, because it's not a reflex oriented driving game, so it needs to do something but not be not be a NASCAR game. Overall, something I wanted to highlight here, which I really liked, I was really glad to see Red Hook say here, we will pivot as needed for the health of the game. I think it is so important that companies spell that out and say it as loudly and oftenly as possible. Everything they tell us, every plan they make, every roadmap they distribute is, this is the plan as of right now. But if tomorrow something changes, we will change the plan in order to make a good game. And I think that that's something that developers can easily lose sight of. And I believe there's it's been a while since I read or watched it, but Darkest Dungeon 1 sort of had that problem when they brought in corpses. The mechanic was such a departure that even though it was ultimately something that I think was an improvement to the game, at the time, it was a debacle. And part of that was that Red Hook had not communicated this kind of message of, we are going to make a good game. And that means we may have to make changes that will foundationally change the game to make it healthier, to make it good. So, here they are spelling it out. This is what they're going to do. Yep. And here they are, here they're spelling out, like, we're moving away from a new region, a new faction. We're focusing on different aspects of the content, in particular, maximum possible run-to-run impact on the quality of the game. So again, hearing the kind of things I want to hear out of Red Hook. And then, this kind of ties into this. So basically they're saying we're kind of pushing a new region / faction in favor of getting what's currently in there to be better. And that goes to the environmental art as well. And then here was actually a couple of juicy little, info here. So they recognize that there aren't enough monsters. They want to add more monsters into the mix, more bad guys into the mix to give us some more opportunity. But here we go. The three slot cultist exemplar, which we can assume is this nasty looking thing. So this is going to be a nightmare, but it's also 3 slots, which is gigantic. The return of the collector, the Darkest Dungeon 1 boss who would summon the decapitated heads of various characters. I think it was Dismas, Junia, who's the Vestal, Barristan, and I guess it's just the 3 of them, Dismas, Junia, and Barristan. So Junia, we'll have to swap out for somebody else, but Dismas and Barristan, we can just have their heads make a return. and then a third secret threat. Ooh, something new. But I definitely dig this. Having more enemies, more variety, and some mini bosses will be an exciting add. But it's interesting that they do spell out the mini bosses take longer to create. Surprising nobody, but the effort to make one of the make the cultist exemplar apparently costs the same as making 6 or 7 normal kind of bog standard units. So while the overall number of playable characters, final bosses, and everything remains unchanged, they are kind of redeploying a little bit resources and trying to add some more diversity to the enemies, including some bigger threats. So I'm going to skip over the what's next because it's actually spelled out down here. But final thing I'm going to highlight before we get into the what's next, we have a launch date, or the beginnings of a launch date. So 1.0 launch is being targeted for February 2023. I think that's pretty good. I mean, that's we still got most of what is it? We got nine months, 3/4 left to get there. But I think we as a community should take a look at this with a grain of salt. That is the plan right now, and like I said earlier, the plan can change. I would rather Red Hook push February into March or even April if it means delivering the high quality game we're looking to play. The February date's a nice date to have out there, as this is the rough idea of when this is going to go to version 1.0 and be the full official launch. But let's all agree that there's a bit of a cloud of gray area around that, and give them the grace and flexibility to move it to where it ends up needing to be. But final piece here, just kind of what's next. So our immediate next content patch is going to be trinket improvements in a third hero path. So just as I'm talking about, I need to update my my trinket review, my trinket tier list for all of the new Shroud of the Deep stuff, they're getting ready to change everything again. Oh, great. And then a third hero path I think is really exciting. We don't have much detail about what this means yet, but the both areas are things that I think could use attention. Trinkets, there's a ton of trinkets that are basically irrelevant. I think you remember there was large number of C and D tier trinkets that just aren't very good. And then, a bunch of trinkets that just sort of like, you throw it in the slot till one of the, dozen or so really good trinkets shows up. And then a third hero path, or actually, sorry, going back to trinkets, there's also not a lot of them are just like flat, 10% increase to this, 20% increase to this, or, generate this token once in a while. There's not a lot of give and take, and particularly with the cultist trinkets, the Dark Impulse and the cultist trinkets are almost actively bad. So because you're spending 2 trinket slots to get an effect that is not 2 trinkets worth of value most of the time. So those definitely need a rebuild, because almost all of them were CD or CD or F tier. So, we definitely need to look there. And then I think there's others that could use that look as well. And then a third hero path, jumping over to that, that'll be exciting to see, to give even more flexibility and options for different ways to play the heroes. I think just as an example that comes to mind, both of Dismas's paths, Rogue and Sharpshot, really favor using a lot of the same skills. Point blank shot becomes very good in both of those in both of those paths. In Sharpshot because it boosts range damage by a ton, and in Rogue because the closer Dismas is to the front, the more damage he gets. So he wants to be rank 1 point blank shot, then wicked slice something down. I mean, that's what he wants to be doing. So maybe a path that puts him more in the third and fourth rank will be an option. Other characters, we have trying to think about this. Paracelsus, she has the Alchemist, kind of blight heavy, and then Surgeon for her melee skills and some healing. But maybe there's some other things we could do with even more buffing or debuffing. We don't, her skills like Blinding Gas and Emboldening Vapors get used very infrequently. at least by me, but I think by most people, because there's just better things to be doing with her. So perhaps we can see something that works those angles. The point being, a third hero path is great. Coming next, so after this initial wave, the cultist reinforcements, so new cultist enemies, probably including this exemplar they mentioned up above, and the new progression system plus new hero number 1. So we're finally got word on when the new hero's coming. Current speculation is it's going to be the bounty hunter. That seems to be the general consensus, but we won't know. And along with that, the Act 3 confession and boss. So, we don't, they've kind of broken the stages of grief here. We do have denial, but then resentment is kind of anger, but kind of not. And if memory serves, the next one would be bargaining. So I guess we're going to get the kidneys of bargaining or something. But, we'll have to see, but that's exciting. Then finally, after that, we have the Act 4 confession boss, relationships, another new hero, collector, driving improvements, hero 3. And this is where this gets vague. This is all stuff that's planned, but a lot of this has been pushed out. Relationships has been pushed out. New heroes, I suspect, has been pushed out. Hero origin skins probably got pushed out. Pets got pushed out because they needed to work on some other things first. So yeah, that's the end of this post. I'll put a link to this in the video description just so you have access to it. And yeah, thank you all for watching. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, all this stuff. Let the YouTube algorithm know I make content you like to watch. And yeah, comment section below. What do you think? Is this a good update? Do you agree with kind of my thoughts on it, or do you have your own thoughts that you want to tell me, I guess? And overall, how do you think the Red Hook team is doing? Until the next real video, see ya.